This is quitting addiction. In the last episode, we looked at injury as one of the major consequences of substance abuse. We discussed on how a person can fall from a height or fall into the fire or get involved in a serious accident that may damage his life or the life of others on the road as a result of substance abuse. In today's episode, we will be looking at depression and anxiety as another consequence of addiction. Now, just to give a background knowledge, so those who are joining us for the first time can follow up. And if you're just joining our podcast for the first time, I recommend you go back to previous episodes and listen so you can follow up on this discussion. Substance abuse, as we all know, often involves using drugs or alcohol excessively, which can ultimately lead to health issues, or in this case, mental health issues. The substance goes on to affect the brain chemistry. For instance, dopamine is a reward hormone that the brain produces when a person is happy or excited. But drug use may increase dopamine release temporarily, giving this person a false sense of excitement or happiness, but shortly after that leads to a crash, making that individual feel worse afterwards. And this is what leads to depression. Depression is defined as a common and serious medical illness that negatively affects how you feel, the way you think, and how you act. It could manifest in feelings of sadness, tearfulness, emptiness, or hopelessness. So when a person is depressed, such a person is unhappy. Such a person cannot find joy in any activity, cannot find happiness in anything. Such a person is always sad all the time. And what are the symptoms of depression? Like I have already mentioned a few. Angry outbursts, irritability, frustration, even over little matters, things that don't require you to blow up. You become angry, you become irritable over little things. You begin to lose interest or pleasure in most or all normal activities. Normal activities such as hobbies or sports or even sex. You suddenly realize that you have no pleasure or interest in any of these things anymore. Your sleep is disturbed. You can develop a medical condition called insomnia, or rather, you may even be sleeping too much. For those who don't know what insomnia is lack of sleep. When a person is unable to sleep at night, you can go for days without sleeping. This is called insomnia. It's a medical condition. And in most cases, it can be caused by substance abuse. You can also see such a person suffering from depression having difficulty in concentrating or remembering or making decisions. Your memory is impaired. Somebody who is depressed has difficulty concentrating on any task. If you're a student, you have difficulty concentrating in class. You cannot study your books because you read and you forget. You can't remember. You can't keep information in your brain. And you make poor decisions in life. Decisions that are harmful to your health. You see such a person also suffering from fatigue, which is tiredness. You're always tired. You're always tired. You don't have interest in doing any activity that requires energy. You're always feeling down all the time. These are symptoms of depression, and it's as a result of substance abuse. So you see a person who takes a certain substance, let us say cocaine for instance, for the first time. He feels so excited, he feels so happy. Or alcohol, you take alcohol and you feel so happy, you're jubilating. You see most people who take alcohol are always all over the place. They are always excited, always making noise, always engaging in one argument or the other. And this explains why in most clubs or hangouts or sit-outs, what is predominantly sold is alcoholic drinks. They sell cigarettes in such places, they sell beer, they sell spirits. Why do they sell those things? Because in order for you to enjoy the moment, you need to get high. And those substances, when you ingest them in your system, they alter your brain chemistry, causing your brain to release dopamine. And so the more you indulge in these substances, the more you force your brain to secrete dopamine, which is unnatural. So you suddenly realize that you need more and more of this substance to get that feeling of happiness, that feeling of joy. And when you don't have access to this substance, you become depressed. Because when you keep taking this substance and dopamine is released in high quantity, all of a sudden, because it is not a natural process, the quantity of dopamine also reduces drastically. And so such a person who was so happy and excited 5 minutes ago is suddenly depressed 5 minutes after. And it gets worse because your brain now requires more and more of that substance to keep you in a happy state. Such a person can be said to be depressed. And closely related to depression is what we call anxiety. Anxiety is a feeling of fear or uneasiness that occurs in response to stress. But unlike depression, anxiety is a natural human response that helps us react to potential threats. So when you are in your house, for instance, at night, and you start hearing a sound, you are alone at home, or you're hearing some sounds in the house, you begin to feel that a burglar has broken into your home. So the natural response to that is anxiety. You become worried. Is my life in danger? So that is the brain's normal response to threats, which leads you to flight or fight, meaning you either stay to fight or you run away from that danger. That is the body's natural response to threats. But people might use substances to cope with anxiety. And over time, the addiction to these substances could make the anxiety worse. For instance, if someone is drinking alcohol on a daily basis to calm down his nerves from stress of work or any other kind of stress that person might be going through, they might eventually need more and more and more alcohol every time whenever they feel stressed or anxious. And as a result of this, the anxiety spikes up because the brain chemistry has been altered by the abuse of this substance over a long period of time. So you see, such a person is always anxious. Even when there's no reason to be anxious, you are always anxious. You're always worried for reasons you can't even explain. And so you always need to take that substance. You always need to smoke or take those drugs or take that alcohol all the time so you can calm down your nerves. What are the symptoms of anxiety? You see, a person who is anxious, one of the first things you notice is that that person is always sweating. He's always restless. He can't stay in one place. He can't just sit down and be calm. There's restlessness in his spirit. There's always tension around him. He's always tense as though something is about to happen. Something bad is about to happen. He's always looking over his shoulder. There's rapid heartbeats. His heart is always beating faster all the time. These are the body's response to stress. But now, there is no stress. There is no reason for you to be anxious. But you are anxious because you have taught your brain over time to depend on a certain substance if it must have joy or happiness or peace of mind. And so when that substance is not readily available, your brain interprets that as the opposite of happiness. And so such a person becomes anxious and sad all the time. and needs to stay sedated, needs to always take those drugs to live a normal life. This is a terrible condition anybody can find himself in. You are addicted to that substance, and it has adverse effects on your system, like we discussed in the previous episode. Such a person begins to develop organ failure like liver cirrhosis. Excess intake of alcohol damages your liver. You go back to the previous episode, you will see more of this information, the effects of substance abuse on the various organs of the body. We discussed it in the previous episode. Effects of these substances on the brain, on the heart, on the lungs, on the liver, on your reproductive system. So anxiety becomes a problem when it is persistent. And remember, like we said, it's a natural human response. So a person who cannot be anxious may not be able to avoid a threat, and so you will always walk into danger. But the issue now is this anxiety as a result of substance abuse does not go away. It also becomes a problem when it interferes with your daily life activities. So even in the absence of a threat or a problem, you are just anxious for no reason, and so you cannot function. Daily activities like going to your job, going to school, going to class, attending to your family, interacting with your loved ones, you can no longer do that because you are always anxious. And in order for you to cope with this anxiety, you must indulge in a substance abuse. So what is the solution? The first step to take to come out of this pit you have found yourself in is to quit immediately. Now you will have withdrawal symptoms. What we term withdrawal symptoms is your brain trying to reset back to normal. Also in the previous episode, I said when a person quits a certain substance, after a period of time, your brain resets. Your brain goes back to normal. Your organs that were getting damaged begin to heal. Although there is a point to which organ damage becomes irreversible. And I pray you don't get to that point before you retrace your steps. But you see, you also need to see a trained therapist. You also need to talk to someone, because treating just the substance abuse alone without addressing the mental health issue that has developed as a result of indulging in that substance may not necessarily solve the problem. So the first step is quitting, and the second step is seeing a therapist, somebody who is trained in this field. And this is why Quitting Addiction is here, to help you out. Many of you want to come out of this addiction, but you don't know how. You don't know who to talk to. Some people are ashamed to even say it, that I am smoking. You hide to do those things. The drugs you indulge in, you hide. It is always done behind closed doors, because it is even a crime. If you are caught by law enforcement agencies, you will be sent to prison. In subsequent episodes, we will discuss crime and imprisonment as one of the consequences of substance abuse. So you're always hiding to take this thing. The main aim and final destination of every addiction is to cut the lifespan of the addict short. This addiction is only directed at cutting your life short, because when you develop heart attack, or your liver fails, or your lungs fail, your days are automatically numbered. So you can no longer have a bright future. You can no longer raise a family. You can no longer grow to become that doctor or that lawyer or that engineer. All the plans you had for yourself are cut short. And so you get married, and when you should begin to raise offspring, your womb has been destroyed. Your reproductive system has been damaged by excessive use of these substances over the years. And all of a sudden, you cannot conceive. You cannot impregnate your wife. This leads to divorce and broken homes. Together, we can bring you out of this addiction and give you a brighter future. If you have listened up to this point, you're a good listener, and I must commend you. If you have any experience you would like to share concerning any of the issues we have raised today, kindly do so in the comment section. You can send me a DM if you need to speak to someone, and we'll reach out to you. Like this video, share it among your friends because someone needs to hear this. And don't forget to follow Quitting Addictions to stay updated with subsequent episodes. I remain your presenter, BEN. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye. And don't forget to follow Quitting Addictions to stay updated with subsequent episodes. I remain your presenter, BEN. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.